everyone, welcome back to Alice Talks Football and welcome back to another live Manchester United news show. It's all coming out. Very credible reporters in the likes of Laurie Whitwell, James Ducker and more talking about many things that have gone on behind the scenes at Manchester United and how ruthless Ruben Amorim can be and how the players always have more respect for Ruben Amorim after how ruthless he has been. Laurie Whitwell gives more detail to the story he put out about Ruben Amorim being shouted at by Ruben Amorim, saying you're not the same player you were at Sporting. We're going to talk about Amorim and Ugarte's relationship. We're going to talk about Ruben Amorim calling squad meetings regularly. If one player has a problem, he calls squad meetings and wants to air that problem in front of the whole squad. It's not, I'm going to address Garnacho privately and tell him he's a little prick. He did it in front of the whole squad and told him, your agent better be good. You better find a new club. We have updates on when he smashed the TV, how the players reacted. We know there was tears after the Brighton game when he smashed the TV and went on the dressing room rant last season. We've just got so much information on what's been going on behind the scenes with Ruben Amorim. It's actually pretty nuts. He might be our most ruthless manager since Sir Alex Ferguson, when I'm actually hearing all the stories of what's going on behind the scenes. And there's even just small things like having a vote to see if we should reinstate Tyrone Malacia. We're going to talk about the Malacia situation. We're going to talk about Ruben Amorim smashing up the dressing room, the players' reaction to that, and how it actually got respect of the players, how he went mental at them. We're going to talk about the players' goals for this season. We're going to talk about Amorim and his meetings, how he shouted at a guy, but also Amorim regularly calls these kind of meetings to shout at players in front of everyone else. We'll then talk about Amorim having conversations with Jason Wilcox about moving to a 4-3-3. We'll talk about the transfer window, Baleba, Elliot Anderson, and more. So, quite a lot to get into, quite a lot to dive into. This whole live stream is going to be a breakdown of what Amorim has been getting up to and doing behind the scenes because, look, it's pretty nuts. Big up everybody in the chat as well. Hope you're doing good. So, first of all, let's get into this story. There's a few things from Laurie Whitwell, there's a few things from James Ducker, and there's a few other bits and bobs about what's been going on in the Man United dressing room. Actually, there's one that's very recent, but I want to talk about this because I think this is quite interesting, and I was intrigued to know your guys' thoughts on this. At the end of the transfer window, Ruben Amorim asked the players for their opinion on Tyrone Malacia. The squad voted in favour of his reinstatement, and Amorim took their view into account. Now, I think this is a really interesting story. Like, Malacia never really did anything wrong. Malacia basically got injured for 2 years and then went out on loan because Ruben Amorim said, you're not good enough, you're not going to get minutes, and he went out on loan. He wasn't like kind of Sancho that kind of demanded a loan, or Rashford that, sort of made it known that he wanted to leave, or Anthony that made it known that he wanted to leave. Unlike the rest of the bomb squad, Tyrone Malacia kind of just had to go to get minutes because he'd been injured and was not good enough. So I always thought that Tyrone Malacia, if anyone from the bomb squad was going to be allowed back in, it would be him. Now, Tyrone Malacia hasn't played for Manchester United. I think he was in the squad the other week, but he's not got any minutes this season. But Ruben Amorim wanted to ask the squad before anyone if he could even bring Tyrone Malacia back to training, which I think is quite interesting. There was a squad vote on whether Tyrone Malacia should be allowed back at training. Is he going to be a distraction? He's not really going to play. Is he going to be a distraction? And obviously the squad is like, well, he works hard. He's injured. He's not going to be a distraction. I think had Sancho not gone out anywhere, it could have been a different debate had that been someone like Jadon Sancho, because Jadon Sancho has sort of been known to be maybe more of a distraction. But I think with Tyrone Malacia, the squad were like, well, we're not going to stop him coming back. Like, it would be a bit like Nobelish, I guess. So, but I just think it's interesting. And one of the things that was said is that Amorim particularly holds meetings with the squad. He doesn't make these decisions on his own. Whenever there's an issue, Ruben Amorim airs it out in the open with the squad. The squad are very aware of the issues and what's going on. Some people might not like that. When he had an issue with Garnacho, he didn't have a private meeting with Garnacho. He went and aired his issue with Garnacho in front of the whole squad. When now he has an issue with Ugarte, rather than having a conversation with Ugarte, he's gone and told Ugarte his issue in front of the whole squad. Like, I don't know if some people think that's good, some people think that's bad, but Ruben Amorim is almost making every decision based off, well, the whole squad will know. When Erik ten Hag was there, some leaks in the changing room, but now doesn't seem to be too many leaks. No, it doesn't seem to be too many leaks. This is kind of behind the scenes stories, some of which are older stories that were known. Malacia always seems to have a good attitude, just played with injuries, odd to even require a vote, which I think is quite true. Like, I don't think Malacia is someone that even, unless there's things that we don't know, is Malacia someone that would even require a vote to bring back? Like, I feel like he's always been well-grounded and stuff. I mean, who knows if there's other things that happened, but he just was unlucky in the last year, and obviously he's just not really good enough, to be honest, as well. But I thought that was one of the interesting things that come out by Laurie Whitwell, and I am going to talk about more about Laurie Whitwell said in a second. I also want to get into some things that James Ducker has said. I want to talk about Ugarte. I want to talk about Ruben Amorim, the response to when he smashed the TV. I want to talk about it all. But that was quite interesting there. And, Ruben Amorim holding meetings is something that he does quite a bit. We obviously know that Ruben Amorim had a meeting after the Europa League final where he told Garnacho he needs to go and get a good agent. Several players were criticised, and Laurie Whitwell confirmed, Ugarte was criticised. And I thought this was quite interesting by Laurie Whitwell because Ruben Amorim doesn't just do everything in private. He lets his feelings known pretty public. He's making it clear, I'm the manager, I'm in charge, how I feel, I will let you know. And I feel like I quite like this approach. So this report came out a month ago, and then Laurie Whitwell kind of denied this report, and then was like, okay, I'll put it out now. Maybe he wasn't allowed to put it out, and then he got permission from the club and put it out. I don't know. But he said, during a meeting where Ruben Amorim told Garnacho he needed a good agent, several players were also there, notably Manuel Ugarte, who Amorim felt was no longer the player he had at Sporting and had become complacent. Manuel Ugarte played for Sporting between 2021 and 2023, but he was not given any special treatment at the end of the season following the Europa League loss. Amorim had particularly pointed feedback to Ugarte, who he felt let his work rate slide from the time they were at Sporting. Amorim believed Ugarte had got uncomfortable and said he did not recognise him as the same player in their first stint together. So that is from Laurie Whitwell on Ugarte, and that is, for me, pretty brutal. Ruben Amorim is saying his work rate's gone, this isn't the player I used to know, and publicly shouted and called out Ugarte in front of the whole squad. Not just Garnacho, obviously told Garnacho, go and find a new club, you better hope your agent's good, but publicly went for Ugarte as well. And he just does not hold it back. Laurie Whitwell mentioned that Ruben Amorim does not join in on players' social activities because he likes to maintain a sense of authority. And I think I quite like that from Ruben Amorim. I do think he's trying very hard to be the coach, to have a sense of authority, to be the man in charge, rather than be friendly, woo, woo, woo. I think he's really trying to be that ruthless manager of you disrespect me, I'm going to call you out. If you're not good enough, you could be in the bomb squad. I think the way that the bomb squad is, the way that Ruben Amorim called out Garnacho, called out Ugarte, the way he reacted when we lost 3-1 to Brighton, I think it is big in the sense of he's trying to get that respect from the players. Thought Ugarte would perform better in the PL, could be struggling with pace and intensity of the league, but he had really good moments under Ruud van Nistelrooy, and then when Ruben Amorim first came in, and then he struggled again once he got an injury. I don't know if confidence is a bit of it as well, but there was a period, I think, from about a year ago, for about 3 months, where I thought Ugarte was pretty good from maybe October to December, and then he just dropped off a bit, to be honest. So who knows? But yeah, let's dive into, obviously, Ruben Amorim's rage, how he shouted at the players, obviously what went down in the dressing room, because we obviously know a little bit about this, but obviously James Ducker sort of spoken about how it's changed the players' feelings around Amorim. So this was released by James Ducker of the Telegraph today, that Ruben Amorim's eyes, welling with tears, smashed the dressing room TV in a furious rant after 3-1 loss to Brighton. Players were stunned, but many respected his raw passion even more. The players witnessed that in plain sight in mid-January when Amorim was foaming with tears. He smashed a television in the Old Trafford dressing room and was apparently launching into an angry tirade in the wake of the 3-1 defeat to Brighton. There was even another report that apparently Amorim threw chairs and tables and wrecked the dressing room, but that was reported back in February. This hasn't been reported by James Ducker about Amorim actually throwing chairs and flipping tables, but when the report first came out, it was about Amorim throwing chairs, flipping tables. But apparently, and this was the interesting thing that was said by James Ducker, is it shocked players to see a manager that way, but there were some who totally understood his strength of feeling it, if anything, grew respect to him. He said the players were shocked. We know some of the players were in tears. We know from obviously reports that came out at the time that some of the players were in absolute tears when Ruben Amorim did this and was shouting at them, screaming at them. I think it came out from every day MFC or someone had inside information that there was tables being flipped, players were in tears. But James Ducker is saying when Ruben Amorim did this, he actually got the respect of a lot of players. They were like, we cannot F with him. Some of them actually were like, they liked his passion and they realized he's in charge. Like, he's put it down, he's in charge, he gets angry, he calls you out. Apparently, this is stuff that Ruben Amorim is doing to make it shown that he's in charge, which I think is maybe what we need in the dressing room. Not, I'm going to be friends with the players. Like Ollie, I liked Ollie, but Ollie wanted to be best mates with all the players. We don't want you to be best mates with all the players. We want you to put the players in their effing place when they start acting like twats, like he did with Alejandro Garnacho, to be honest, as well. Do you think what? Oh no, Delo. He shouted at Delo. He's not shouting at Delo because Delo's his favourite. He shouted at Delo. Did you not see Amorim shout at Delo versus Forest? I did a video on it. Amorim is ruthless. Yeah, we always joke that cousin Delo's his favourite. Amorim's been screaming at Delo. Amorim's been shouting at Ugarte. Amorim's been shouting at Delo. Like, Amorim is trying to make it clear he doesn't have favourites. Last week he's shouting at Delo. The other week he's shouting at Ugarte. Ugarte could have been his favourite because of the time of sporting. Delo could have been favourites because they're Portuguese and cousins. Yeah. You dare not call out your senior players if you really don't want everything to collapse. This is Daniel. I mean, could this cost Amorim? If he fell out with the wrong player, could he lose the dressing room? Is it wrong of him to call out senior players? Could he lose the dressing room? Or is Amorim doing the right thing and sort of getting the authority that he should get? Because I liked Ollie, but I felt like he didn't stand up to the bigger egos, because I think Ruben Amorim is trying not to be friends and be like, I am your boss. And the good thing about Ruben Amorim is that Sergio Ratcliffe's come out, done an interview and said, we're backing him, we're giving him 3 years. So any player that has an issue with Ruben Amorim is like, well, I'm going to go before him if we're to listen to Ineos. It's not like Ruben Amorim is on the edge, Jim Ratcliffe is like he's on the edge, and the players that don't like Ruben Amorim could just muck about because they know he'll go. The players that don't like Ruben Amorim, they've got to now prove their worth to Ruben Amorim because Ineos has said, well, we're not getting rid of him. If you have an issue with the manager, you'll be the one that goes because we're not getting rid of him. Really, grown men getting the honour to play for Man United, getting paid $1 million, crying for being shouted at. I don't think they were crying for being shouted at necessarily. I think they were upset with their performance and themselves, to be honest. Ollie did mention it was hard to handle the squad the way he wanted, said current young generation was too soft. Ronaldo came in and he took digs at, I think, the young players. I think it was Greenwood, but he never named Greenwood, and the attitude of the young players. And look, we had a few good young players, but they had attitude issues. And, I think Ronaldo spoke about that. And Ronaldo was there when Ollie was there. I think Ruben Amorim, one thing about Ruben Amorim that I won't criticise is I think he's dealt best with all our managers since Sir Alex with the attitude problem players. Maybe that's also helped because Ineos are here and will actually get rid of the problem players. But, Garnacho just went, boom, F off, bye. No bringing back Sancho because we've got a different manager. There was the bomb squad. There was even players like Onana and Højlund that weren't in the bomb squad. And Amorim was like, I don't want them. So we went and got their replacements and went, well, you're not going to play. It's up to you. You can stay and not play or you can leave. Oh, all of a sudden, these players that wouldn't leave in the summer because we got their replacements and they were told they weren't going to get minutes, they left. I think Ruben Amorim, out of all our managers, I think has been best at getting rid of potential problem players and trouble players. I liked Ollie. And he never finished 15th. And Ollie, for only managers got back-to-back top 4 finishes for us. But he didn't have that ruthlessness. And, you need that ruthlessness. Ronaldo said they didn't want to work hard, learn, or listen to constructive criticism. And that was the dressing room. I actually look at the dressing room, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, we've got Delo and Ugarte. Oh, we've got Delo and Ugarte. But are Delo and Ugarte causing issues in the dressing room? No. Back in the day, we'd be talking about players and we're like, oh, apparently Eric Bailly did this in the dressing room and that caused this. Apparently, this player did this and this player did that in the dressing room and this player fell out with this player. We don't have those stories anymore that a player's done this or a player's fallen out with this player. We don't get the leaks anymore. Yeah, we're not in a great place, but I think in terms of dressing room atmosphere, I think the players are quite in check. I think we have a lot of players with ego problems, mentality issues when Ollie was here. I don't think we actually have players with ego and mentality issues at this club. I couldn't sit here and tell you a player I think we have that has an ego and mentality issue because we know about how hard Maino and Xerxes are working and they're not playing. They're not causing problems like somewhat other players have when they've not been playing. They've just worked hard and got on with it. We've got a dressing room right now at Man United, but I don't feel there's players with ego issues or mentality issues. I think mentality is weaker in the sense of there's confidence. I think you can see it in some of the younger players. Maybe you can ask for the confidence side of it. But there's no leaks. There's no players that are acting like knobheads. I mean, Garnacho's gone and there's no leaks. And, that's quite interesting within itself. But I do think Ruben Amorim's done a good job of getting his dressing room together and getting the respect of the players. And obviously you've got to give Ineos credit for that as well. But I feel like that is a difference. But you're right. Ruben Amorim's done the dressing room bit, but we need to see the football bit. So I want to talk about a few other stuff that's come out. And interestingly, I thought James Ducker said this, and I thought this was interesting. The players believe that qualification for the Champions League was within reach. We need 5th place. I think we can do it. I think Sunderland will drop off. Liverpool just are a mess. City and Arsenal guaranteed top 2. Chelsea, Liverpool, probably 3rd and 4th. 5th place, well, Newcastle's who I put down for 5th place. Effing shite. Villa, they've got a lot of games, hit and miss. Sunderland, probably going to drop off. Bournemouth, could they do it? Potentially, but Bournemouth dropped off massively the back end of last season after a good start. Man United, Tottenham. Man United and Tottenham, it should be competing for 5th. Tottenham have more games. Tottenham have a worse attack on paper, but have a better defence, a worse attack. I do look at it and think, maybe we can get 5th. As long as we get top 7. If we don't get Europa League, I think there has to be questions on Amorim, because I think the squad of 1 game a week is too good not to get Europa League football. And I think, look, 15th to 8th would be a great improvement. But I do think if we don't get European football next season, there needs to be questions over Amorim, because I think our squad is good enough to be getting 5th place finish. And Amorim has cost us at times with substitutions, with adaptions. But I think we're good enough. You could argue we have the 5th best team in the league. You could argue we have the 5th best team in the league. We're not top 4, but 5th. 5th can get you Champions League. I think we've got a better team than Sunderland. We've got a better team than Bournemouth. We've got a better team than Tottenham, Villa, Newcastle. We just need to show that we're better. We need to show that we're better. I don't know what you guys think, but I think top 4 should be an aim for sure. There should be questions about Amorim. He hasn't improved us one bit. I mean, we definitely improved from last season, but you could debate, well, we've got a lot better players in, which is why we've improved. Has Amorim's tactical approach improved? I mean, he's made adaptations in recent games, but maybe subs isn't great. But we have improved. I think it would be harsh to say he hasn't improved us. There's got to be some questions around Amorim if we don't achieve like a top 7 finish. But I think he's improved us. Like, we're 7 games unbeaten. But there's definitely elements of Amorim's game that he needs to improve. But also, he needs a midfielder and left wing back to help. So it's a mix of Amorim still needs this, and this. But yes, Amorim could do better at this, and this. But we're 5 games unbeaten in the Premier League. Sorry, 5 games unbeaten in the Premier League, not 7. Like, there's improvement there for sure. We need to see more Xerxes if Sesko's injured. I agree. It'd be nice to see Xerxes get an opportunity. What we need to do in January that will make us get Champions League: midfield and wing back. Mark my words, Kone's going to be one of the most important players this season. Well, we're going on a mid-season tour to the Bayern. Kone is expected to get minutes. Considering underwhelming left wing back and not an ideal midfield too, we're not doing too poorly, yeah. I still think this team's good enough to get top 7, but we definitely need a left wing back and midfield too to, I think, push top 4, to be honest. If English teams do good, top 5 gets UCL. I think English teams will do good to get UCL, because you just look at, like, for example, Liverpool getting battered in the Premier League. Well, they beat Real Madrid and they beat Frankfurt quite easily. They smashed them, and then they go get battered in the Premier League. I think the Premier League is so much stronger than the other leagues that will do well enough in Europe that 5th will get us in the Champions League again. But yeah, it's mad. It's mad. But yeah, I want to get into a few other stories, because I actually want to talk about the January transfer window. Because my worry is that we're going to ignore the January transfer window and not bring in what we need in January. Now, that is my big worry. And I'm going to show you a report on the January window from Rob Dorset and Darnish from Sky Sports. Manchester United have no plans for the January signings despite AFCON absences. Focus remains on a new midfield next summer, with Carlos Baleba, Elliot Anderson, and Adam Wharton under close watch at Old Trafford, none expected to move mid-season. Basically, the point that I think they're trying to make is Man United aren't going to buy someone in January if they wouldn't have brought them in the summer. Do you know what I mean? Like, any deal and business that Manchester United do, they want it to be a long-term target, like an Elliot Anderson, a Wharton, a Baleba. They don't want it to be some crappy midfielder that's not doing well at their current club and we go bring them in on loan. So they're saying because the names that United want aren't available in January, they might not do anything in January. And I have mixed thoughts on this. I'm like, we need to push in January. We need to try in January. Could we put a bid for Elliot Anderson to tempt Forest in January and settle the player? I think we need to try. I think we need to try left wing back. I think we need to try midfield. I think we need to push it in January. Man United, I think, want to sign someone in January, but I guess it is realistic. I'd rather, go all out for an Elliot Anderson in January, not get him in January, but get him in the summer, than go for like a crappy midfielder because the crappy midfielder is available in January. I get that sense. But there is a feeling because the players that United want in January aren't going to be available to the summer, we won't do anything in January. But I think we push for those players. Baleba's doing crap at Brighton. See what his price tag is now. See if Brighton want to sell him. Elliot Anderson, unsettle him. Put a big bid in. That's what we need to do because we need a midfielder for sure. I wanted to talk about a few other things that Laurie Whitwell had said that I thought was particularly interesting. And some of it is about maybe Ruben Amorim switching over to a 4-3-3, which I thought was different. And I want to dive into that in a second. Laurie Whitwell said, Jason Wilcox is known to like a 4-3-3 that brought Manchester City dominance. He has a strong relationship with Ruben Amorim and the pair speak daily. He watches training. Amorim has said his system will evolve over time when he's ready, and he has laid out his team in a 4-3-3 for some parts of sessions, but this is mainly to embed and understand certain phases of play during matches. So Ruben Amorim is still sticking with his current system of formation, but there has been suggestions in and around the club that we should switch more to a 4-3-3. Now, I'm not saying we need to switch to a 4-3-3, but obviously someone like Jason Wilcox has sort of suggested maybe we should eventually move into a 4-3-3 because it suits the Man United style more. Man United is a 4 at the back club. It's not a 3 at the back club. If the 3 at the back is working and doing great, don't change what's working. But it's now being suggested to Ruben Amorim that he could change to 4 at the back and go to a 4-3-3. And I do think naturally this squad currently suits a 4-3-3 more. Because I look at someone like Mazraoui can go right back. I think Dorgu and Shaw can go left back. And Delo in a back 4 is actually so much better than Delo in a back 5. But I think if you play a back 4, Shaw would go back to full back. Why has that not gone in? Bear with me. I'm trying to type, but my mic is in the way here. I literally just typed Dorgu here. I'm just thinking of this now. Dorgu, Shaw. And then in the middle, you've got, to be honest, I think we would probably go with Euro to start with as Leach is coming back from injury. And then you'd have one of De Ligt and Maguire for the box presence and one of Euro and Leach for the mobility. But you've also got Aiden Heaven to potentially go in there as well. Luke Shaw can always play centre-back. But I do look at our squad and I think naturally, other than midfield depth, we're suited best to a 4-3-3. Because if you look at this, Casemiro, the only problem is Ugarte is the only midfielder for depth. But you get Maino in, and all of a sudden we're less overloaded in the midfield. You've got Bruno in here. Mount can always be coming in here as well. Maybe that's less opportunities for Mount. You've got Sesko, Xerxes, and even Cunha can play there. Xerxes, Cunha. The only thing I don't like is I think Mbeumo and Ahmad double teaming on the right is better. Rather than one or the other, I think having both of them is great. Whereas it kind of becomes, well, Ahmad's the spare man, I think, here. But you can obviously rotate it. But I do look at it and think, I do think we are better suited to a 4-3-3. Maybe it's 4-3-3 out of possession, 3-4-3 in possession. But it's interesting that Jason Wilcox is having conversations with Ruben Amorim about 4-3-3, and that Ruben Amorim is sometimes setting up in a 4-3-3 in training. So maybe Ruben Amorim is looking to potentially eventually make changes or sort of turn his 3-4-3 into a bit of a 4-3-3 at points. It will be interesting to see. I think Martinez just needs to get fitness back before he properly plays. But I'm not too. It's for me. I've always said I prefer four at the back, but I'm not too bothered about formation and what Amorim does with formation. It's about how Amorim sets up his system. You can use any formation in the world, but I want him to set us up so we're not getting caught out and build up. We're not getting overloaded in midfield. If you get what I mean, like that's what I want to see. Like, yeah. Rory Whitwell also mentioned that Ruben Amorim wants those who don't play to prove to him that they deserve minutes during training sessions rather than individual meetings. So Ruben Amorim is having very strict training sessions to look at the players that aren't playing, and he wants them to prove a point to him. It's not just about you can have a meeting with me and say, oh, I'm happy about not playing. I need to see it in training. So it'll be interesting to see because apparently Mino and Xerxes have been ridiculously good in training, according to reports behind the scenes. So who knows what the truth is on that. Harry Amas has been spoken about very highly by those at Sheffield Wednesday. He's doing well on loan. Vitek has continued to do well on loan, which is good news. Sesko is staying at Carrington for the international break as he's picked up a knock. So yeah, I wanted to just sort of talk about all the stories in today's live stream, pretty much. Yeah. The Cunha Dorgu Mano combination was working and the manager abandoned it. Well, it looked good for the little cameo that they had together, I do agree. But yeah, I wanted to do a little roundup of all the news going about. So obviously, Ruben Amorim has made it clear to players that he needs to see them in training if they want to start, and he needs to see them prove a point in training. Ruben Amorim has meetings with the squad when it comes to big decisions, like should we let Malacia back in? He's smashed up the dressing room. He's made players cry. He's smashed up the TV, which we know about, but we've got the context of that, got the players' respect. He shouted at Ugarte. He shouted at Delo. He's held big team meetings over little things. We spoke about it. You know, Ruben Amorim is trying to be ruthless, and Ruben Amorim is trying to make the Man United dressing room know that he's in charge. Rather than being friendly with like Ollie, he's got that ruthless approach, and I quite like it. And I think that's probably what our dressing room needs, is that little bit of a ruthless approach, a little of a different approach of like, I'm in charge, I'm the boss, don't mess with me. And I like that from Amorim. Anyway, people, I'm going to wrap up today's live show in a minute. I hope you did enjoy today's live show. And mostly just talking about Amorim's approach and how I do think that Amorim has got rid of a lot of the bad eggs. And I do think that Amorim is in more control of that dressing room than someone like Ollie. And, you know, his approach behind it potentially is a big reason for that. I think the way that Ruben Amorim has been is maybe a big reason behind that. But look, go and give Never a Foul Raid. They're live now. Go give Never a Foul Raid. Thank you everyone for watching today's live show. See you next time. Bye.